After a week off, the Heel to the Face podcast is back. I'm Jarad.
I'm Brandon.
And there's a guy who many did not realize was a writer for WWE back in the day, a heartthrob from the early 2000s, but he's going to make you know that he's a wrestling fan because he's trying to start his own promotion. We will talk that and so much more as the Heel to the Face podcast for another week starts right now.
Fans celebrate with me from Rome to Rochester.
Bad Election would be my middle name. They might as well tag me up with my buddy from Syracuse.
Jarad here with Brandon for another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast as we go into WrestleMania Backlash this upcoming Sunday from Providence. We are on the road to AEW's Double or Nothing a couple weeks ago when we didn't have a show. Went to Impact Rebellion, and we let off the little teaser with Freddie Prinze Jr. A lot of people, it's a lot of fun facts. For those who aren't even wrestling fans, you kind of throw it out there and kind of be like, hey, you know Freddie Prinze Jr.? And they'll be like, yeah, I know Freddie Prinze Jr. from She's All That and other Scooby-Doo and other movies from the early 2000s.
Yeah, Summer Catch.
Yeah, all those heartthrob movies. Many did not realize he was a writer back in the day for WWE.
Yeah, I remember this.
And like I said, he's going to make you know he was a writer and that he didn't just do it, as something to do, but he is indeed a wrestling fan because he has been in talks about starting a wrestling promotion. When it comes to spring football leagues and wrestling promotions, everybody's got to have their own, it seems like.
Apparently.
And he's got a 3-year plan, which means that this isn't going to be one of those like football leagues in which they run out of money real quick and then they're done. He's got a 3-year plan financially set. He's looking for TV deals. He's already got it set. It's going to be 2 hours of TV time, not a minute longer. He's learning from, he made sure to make a point out of that. Like, it's going to be just 2 hours. Like, don't get excited, folks, meaning it's going to be longer than 2 hours. Because now, obviously, with the world of wrestling, we have to make a point that it is not going to be ridiculously long. Like, that's kind of like makes it seem like it's some sort of like novelty that it's only 2 hours.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
Which part here?
The whole. Why do you need that? Why do we have to have a million promotions at this point? I mean,
see, I remember a while ago you were talking about people adding more. There's so much talent out there, more promotions.
Yeah, but like, what's it really going to do? You're going to get what at this point, like fourth tier guys?
I guess the thing is, there's always been a million promotions, but it just seems like there's a lot of promotions that are fighting for television time. I guess that's the thing. There's always been indie promotions. There's always been niche promotions. There's always been that. But now there's so many promotions that want American television time. And I guess the thing is just, there has never really been a time where there has been so much wrestling.
That's the thing. It's like football, like you mentioned. Everybody has to have, they have to have their own. I don't mind the indie stuff. That's fine. But when now you start talking TV deals, how much wrestling do you need on TV?
You know what I find very strange, and this is very simplistic, and I thought of this a long time ago, but as we talked a few weeks ago, and I don't know if I mentioned too much in the show about how that XPW show was about 6.5 hours long, their second show in California a couple of weeks back, and obviously the 2 nights of WrestleManias, the pay-per-views every month, the AEW pay-per-views running about 4 hours long, quarterly, the special events. It is just so strange to me. I like professional wrestling. We like it a lot for sure. But, it is so strange that if you're not a fan of professional wrestling, if you think about this, at the core of it all, wrestling is so simplistic. It is a ring. True. It is 2 people, and it is just like choreographed fighting that is like a lot of like, a lot of wrestling, especially back in the day, was on the fly. Like, meaning now I feel like a lot of it's more choreographed, but back in the day they used to say you knew the finish and then you just kind of wasted time. You got in the ring, you knew the finish of the match, what the final was going to be, but until then you just did wrestling moves on each other for 20 minutes or so until it got down to the finish.
Yeah, just to kill time.
Yeah, like essentially, Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson would get in the ring and they would just...
But Dynamite, they do advertise here and there. Hey, we're gonna go over. We're gonna, we're gonna stay with the action until there's a definitive winner.
Well, yeah, but I guess it's strange because wrestling is just the same thing over and over and over again. And unlike basketball, like basketball is the same thing over and over again, and football is the same thing, and baseball, they are all the same thing over and over again. Yeah. But there is not so much of that, meaning there is one Major League Baseball, there's one NBA, and sure, there's a college level and stuff like that. But I mean, with wrestling, there's all these different companies, there's all these different philosophies. There's AEW, there's hardcore, there's niche indie wrestling that's on television. There's Japan.
Yeah.
There's all of this, but at the end of the day, I mean, it is the same. It is 2 hours of people in the exact same size ring throwing each other off the ropes, and it's like. And it's unlike those other sports. There is no off season. There is no it's only one. I feel like in the 90s there was a lot of wrestling, but Raw was 2 hours. There was no SmackDown. I think Thunder came around, but essentially you had Nitro and Raw, which were both 1 hour at the beginning of their shows. They were 1 hour each. And they moved to 2 hours. ECW was 1 hour. So even though you had 3 companies, you essentially had 3 or 4 hours a week of wrestling. Now, I mean, if you watch all AEW, all WWE, all Impact, you could. It's like 20 hours.
Yeah, it's almost like
wrestling.
It's like a part-time job. After your normal work, it's like watching all these shows just to stay up with everything. It can get exhausting sometimes.
And I just got to say, as somebody who is a wrestling fan, at the core of it all, it is just the same thing for 20 hours. Like if you watch wrestling, it's like watching a baseball game. If you don't like baseball, and I'm like, there's this baseball, there's that baseball, I'm like, it's just a guy throwing a ball and a guy hitting a ball. And you're like, yeah, but there's going to be this company does it and that company does it. And you're like, but it seems to just be the same thing.
Yeah.
And that is true. It is the same thing. I like it. And it's exciting sometimes it's exciting, sometimes it's dull, sometimes it's boring, but it's just crazy to think that we live in a world where WWE, I think specifically, I remember Vince McMahon saying that, WWE fans, or I don't know if at the time it was WWF, but he said wrestling fans like us, like their diet of us, meaning they like us. But now it's not even like that. Now it's not they used to try to sell it. Vince McMahon used to be like, hey, we know you like football. We know you like basketball. We want to have a piece of the pie of your entertainment. But we realize that, there's a whole vast world out there. So we just want to have a piece of, like I said, we want to be part of your entertainment diet. But now there's just so much wrestling that they want to just be your entire diet. They want to be every night you turn on television, there is wrestling out there. And WWE, I say, is very guilty of this because even if there wasn't the other companies, I mean, we're talking 2-night WrestleMania, SmackDown, Raw, a WrestleMania weekend is 4 or 5 nights consecutive of wrestling, NXT in the daytime. And it's again, it's just so silly because at least in the baseball realm, there's an off season and you follow this one team. You might kind of watch other teams for a minute or two, but for the most part, you follow one team and there's an off season. With WWE, they don't give you any of that. They're like, we're on Monday night, Tuesday night, Friday night. We got shows throughout the week.
Yep.
Our pay-per-views are 4 hours long. We got house shows on the weekends. We don't ever shut off. We go on Christmas Day. We go on Thanksgiving Day, 4th of July. There is no off season. And it's just strange because, again, all those other things get boring. Football gets boring. Basketball gets boring. But at least they have off seasons. At least they stop for a minute. While wrestling is
give you a break, yeah.
Yeah, and wrestling at the end of the day is the exact same thing. At least in those other sports, they have the realm of being real sport, so they have to take a break, and they are.
And here's the thing. I like the fact that there are so many different flavors, so to speak, like you mentioned. It's like going to Baskin and Robbins and getting whatever flavor ice cream you want. It's like you're into certain things, you watch certain shows. The issue that I have is how do you keep up with everything? It's just it's a nonstop. You gotta. I mean, the nice thing is, luckily, you get YouTube and you can watch clips here and there because to be honest with you, sometimes
I just always wondered how this form of entertainment got to the point where we're at because there's monster trucks,
sure,
and there's demolition derbies and there's slam ball, and remember back in the day the Friday night slam on TNN when they had roller derby for an hour, ECW for an hour.
What was that, Roller Jam? I think it was called
Roller Jam.
Yeah.
They had Monster
awesome.
Jam. They
that
had
fun.
1 hour from 8 to midnight of there was ECW, Roller Jam, Slam Ball, Monster Trucks. They had a little bit of everything.
I thought that was good. I enjoyed that back.
But how did none of those other things grow? Essentially, how come we don't have monster truck racing? essentially to the extent of professional wrestling, where there's like 100 companies, there's indie monster truck racing, they're traveling the world, there's 5 hours of monster trucks on every single night.
You named one of those that I don't know.
Or Roller Jam's another one.
Roller Jam is where I was going. Yeah. Roller Jam was, I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun watching people just kick the crap out of each other. That was fun. It was just, to me, it was like, okay, is this thing going to grow? Yes, you can probably find it just like any indie fed wrestling somewhere.
Yeah, they have local roller derby.
But it's not like you don't have like New York versus Boston kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like that. It's just like, it's like at your local ring.
And I think they might have like not like to WWE's level, but I think they might.
It's definitely not. Yeah, I was gonna say definitely not.
They have what they had essentially. I think what they had on television at the time, like a national, like a national.
Does anybody really care though?
That you could probably follow. I don't know, but it's just weird that those things are very niche and stay like really in their narrow lane.
Yeah, Slam Ball was fun, but it was, to me, Slam Ball was very.
I think Slam Ball still exists in some regards. I don't know.
Well, it's like and one still.
Yeah.
It's just like you got to find it on YouTube now.
But like, it's just crazy how none of those things, like for example, like roller derby. You know what I mean? It's crazy how like roller derby isn't on network or cable television, national television, 3 hours a night, 7 nights a week. And then, like through all year round. Like I can't find, like if I went to a relative's house, I can be like, oh, it's Christmas night. There's a live roller derby 3 hours on. They're like, didn't we watch this last night? You're like, no, that was the live 3 hour Christmas Eve roller derby.
Yeah.
They'd be like, what is this? That doesn't exist. Like Monster Jam, like that's pretty much it for the monster truck racing. If there is something else, that's great. But like, I'm not turning on the USA Network and being like, 4 hours of monster truck again tonight. You're like, this is on the eve of 4 more hours tomorrow night. Then there's like a 9-hour event on Saturday. And you're like, that doesn't exist. But in the world of professional wrestling, it exists. It exists. There's, like I said, Impact, AEW. And these are all things. I'm only talking about the ones that are on cable television that if you're not a wrestling fan, you literally flip through the channels and you're like, 3 hours of wrestling tonight again? Like I mentioned, we let off this with Freddie Prinze Jr. and how it had to be known that I'm starting a national company, but it's only going to be 2 hours, folks. Like that's a niche. 2 hours is now like the equivalent of what 30 minutes was years ago.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Freddie. Thank you. And like, here's
I'm only
my
gonna
thing.
add 2 more hours.
Here's the thing though, like somebody like Freddie, like why not like join up with another organization that's established and help them out and like become an investor, so to speak.
Well, you could say the same. I mean, if you want to talk that, let's talk that about spring football. I mean, wouldn't it make more sense for one of these companies, one of these rocks or people out there to join up with like the CFL, which is established, which has been going on for years and years, than to start another league from scratch with all new teams, with all new rosters, with all new coaches, with all new literally everything.
Here's the thing. CFL is a very niche audience. The United States audience doesn't really care about
well,
CFL.
I know, and I understand that. But what you could do is what your idea is. The USA audience doesn't care about the XFL. The XFL doesn't exist. It doesn't. So what I'm saying is
there's still enough interest in the USFL where they're still going to play the games. It's not like they're ending the season.
What I'm saying is that you could go into something like the CFL, and you could then, that would be easier to put 5 CFL teams in the United States and to grow that and to get TV partners in the United States. Essentially do what you're doing with the XFL. The difference is the league's already there. The league office is already there. The other teams are already there. There's so much foundation. There's so much rooted that you can just be like, I want to add some new teams that are American and add Americanized, television networks to go with them.
I don't see
and also add these new rules.
Here's the issue though. So then you're going to have half the league is good and half the league sucks because half the league already has established players and the other league is expansion.
Because it's just like anything else with expansion, you spread team players around. You know what I mean? I mean, look at the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, they won the playoffs like the first 3 years they existed in the NHL.
I'm just saying, football is a different game though. Like how many expansion teams come out the gate really and like, oh yeah, we're gonna win the Super Bowl.
No, I mean, I don't know if you remember, but you probably don't. But there was the big CFL American expansion in the '90s. That was CFL. That wasn't like an American investor. That was CFL, I think. Ideas. But yeah, they had the only team to ever win the Grey Cup outside of Canada, which was the Baltimore Stallions, who tried to be the Baltimore Colts originally, but they couldn't get their hands on the Baltimore Colts name. There was a big fight.
Of course.
But that was a good idea. Like, hey, we're going to put a team in Baltimore. We're going to try to get the Colts name so that we kind of like get that fan base. You already got the jersey. You already got the hats.
Didn't work so well.
And it worked out so well in the sense of it helped them get the Ravens. And then essentially that's what it killed the Baltimore Stallions, but essentially the fan base helped them then get the Baltimore Ravens.
Well, I mean,
so it was good for Baltimore because
it wasn't good for Cleveland though.
Well, yes. Well, fine for Cleveland. They got a team later on. But the point is,
Well, yeah,
in the absence
years.
of the Baltimore Colts and before the Baltimore Ravens, there was the Baltimore Stallions. The issue I mainly have with the CFL expansion is they went to weird, random cities, mostly which weren't near the Canadian border. So it really didn't resonate. They had a team in Sacramento, San Antonio, Shreveport, Louisiana, like these places that do not have that tie to Canada, like we, let's say, in the Northeast do. Like you are more familiar with Canada. You're familiar with Toronto, where it is located on a map, more than you would if you were in San Antonio.
You could do like a Buffalo kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. A Buffalo, Windsor, Ontario, because Windsor, Detroit area. You know what I mean? You could add a team to Detroit.
You could do like what, Seattle?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like those would be places if I was to expand. If I was The Rock, I would try to invest in the CFL. I would want to expand.
Well, I think they tried.
I know they collaborated with like a rule, and the CFL is going to be using some of these new rules this upcoming year.
Yeah, but the collaboration really didn't go anywhere though.
It went where they were just like exchanging ideas.
That's all it was. Yeah. It wasn't anything like, oh yeah, we're gonna team up and go against the NFL kind of a thing.
Well, no, and I don't think any of these leagues should ever team up and go against or do anything against the NFL.
I'm not suggesting that by any means because nobody's going to touch the juggernaut of the NFL. The NFL
and that's why I think the USFL. I know that you say, it's going to last for the rest of the year, and I probably think that maybe this time it will. But I think as soon as their safety net is done, I think the USFL will be done as well. That is my opinion.
Here's what I'll say though.
Like they've saved enough money to get. It's like if you save enough money to pay rent on an apartment for a year. So no matter if you lose your job or not, you've got enough money to pay rent until the end of the year.
Here's the thing.
I think when that rent money runs out, you're out.
Here's the NFL. Here's what the NFL should do, and they're going to make money doing it too. Why not make the USFL, for example, like what the G League is to the NBA? Like guys that maybe maybe they can't, maybe they're done with school, like maybe they just
make it
an
official
grades.
Minor league.
Yeah, make it a minor league, like, and then you can have and then essentially it could be a feeder program. In addition, obviously the NFL draft that just happened, a feeder program where these guys that are maybe didn't get a fair shot or a fair shake, they think, and for the NFL draft, they actually can get on the field and get some game tape, and then these teams can say, hey, let's give you a tryout.
So I'll just say quickly, without it being christened by the NFL, we already had the question about the XFL and the USFL a couple weeks ago. Now that there's a few weeks in of sample size and we've seen some of these very low crowds in the USFL, my question to you is, when the USFL safety, because I think they have like a 3-year plan, when the 3 years runs out, where now they have to make money or be gone, will the USFL be lasting longer than that?
That's tough to say. It's really tough to say, dude. Like you said, the attendance is what it is. But we're going to get to in a second. Another organization away from football. I mean, let's be honest. The attendance sucks, but they're making tons of money. So if you can find different ways to sell, because a lot of people. Here's the thing: the
USFL does have a very good TV deal right now.
They have a great TV deal. They also, if they can get some of this merch out, that can help as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's ways to do it because, and let's, we're just going to get to it now. WWE is literally, they've made the most money in a quarter in the history of their business. And attendance, as we all know, because we've been to shows, it's not that great.
Yeah, and I think attendance it's not at they've had times where attendance is like at their very low points.
So I
think SmackDown and stuff have been doing pretty good.
Let's take a step back. So when we went to Buffalo, for Raw in Buffalo, what do you think? About 70% full?
Well, I mean, you have to look at it as the sense of what tickets they're selling. They're not selling the full place.
So how many people do you think were there? I'd say about 60% of the arena. Maybe
that'd actually be a high estimate. I would probably say crowd wise, the arena holds about 18,000 full.
So about
all the way
9.
Around.
About 9.
I would say probably about 7 to 8.
You think so? So a little less than half then.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's what but yes, they have great TV deals.
Great TV deals, and also people are buying merch like it's no tomorrow. Like the collector game is real. That's a big thing. So I mean, you could be. If these action figures go on sale, people are buying them up and keeping them or selling them for a profit. So it's like it's not only just the TV deal, but the merch is going. It sells like hotcakes. Like how many people are buying the Roman Reigns T-shirts. Like those are hot selling items right now. Cody Rhodes shirt, hot selling item.
Yeah, we've talked about this. It's weird. Is like WWE, the fervor for WWE, and is the Attitude Era. That is like the staple of when wrestling was so hot, when crowds were selling out. But when it comes to overall making money and being out there, like they're best now. Like it's so strange to think, but like they're running 8 stadium shows this year. They ran in like 1999, 0 stadium shows. I mean, WrestleMania in 99, WrestleMania in 98, those were all in front of arenas. And the question is, if they were in front of stadiums, could they have been putting people in stadiums the way that they are now? I don't know. Because, yes, they had a large group of that 18 to 24, which were rabid about the WWE.
I would say yes. Especially like, I would say late 90s, early 2000s.
I mean,
would say
WrestleMania
yes.
17 filled up the Astrodome in 2001. That was like their first stadium show in many years.
I would say like 97, 98. I mean, wrestling was just good across the board.
I guess the problem I have though with that as well.
And look at this though. WCW, they were in the George Dome.
The issue, true. They didn't fill up the whole place, but yes. And I think WWE went to the Sky Dome in Toronto a few times for Monday Night Raw. I think they went to the Sky Dome. I've done my research, and I think the reason they went to the Sky Dome, because I was wondering like why they had some Raw, Monday Night Raws, not pay-per-views, but Raws there, is because there was the time in which Maple Leaf Gardens was essentially being closed down, but Air Canada Centre hadn't like essentially opened up yet. So the Raptors were playing at, and yes, the Maple Leafs are still playing at Maple Leaf Garden until the other one opened, but like it just wasn't a sufficient building, and the Raptors were starting to play at Sky Dome until Air Canada Centre was finished. So WWE was actually using that kind of basketball configuration because Toronto's a big time place to go, and they want to go there at least once or twice a year. So they were hitting them up for, I even think they hit them up for a house show.
At the Sky Dome?
Yeah, they hit them up for a house show at the Sky Dome, as well as like a Monday Night Raw or two back in the day, where they drew like 25,000.
That's pretty good.
I guess I just think now is like such a mainstream popularity. Before you had like the rabid 18 to 24-year-old and the teenage kid, but now it is something that is like when they call for WrestleMania, for example, back in the day, you had to really rely on ticket sales. Now, what you can rely a lot on is community involvement. Meaning when WrestleMania would have come to Boston in the 90s or, 1999 for WrestleMania, you got the building, of course, and you could sell out the building, but you couldn't really get the mayor to be on your side and the county senators and all these kind of people to really advocate for this big event to come. Like they were just like, look, you can rent the building. That's great. You can sell it out. That's great. And we're happy you're here. But now, because it's such a more mainstream, family-friendly product, I mean, a lot of the people I think at AT&T Stadium were probably community organizers and people who work in the tourism committee and people who are like really behind bringing this.
I mean,
to your town.
Titus brings a lot of brand recognition.
They do all these
really
these
great.
be a star and bullying campaigns and community, which I don't think they were doing a lot of during the Attitude Era.
I don't think they were either. Like Titus O'Neil is a perfect example. Like anytime they're doing anything in the Tampa area, for example. I mean, they does it everywhere, but like. Anytime it's anything Tampa area related, Titus is there. He is such a great representative of WWE. He doesn't wrestle it really anymore. I haven't seen him wrestle in a while, honestly. But he is such a good asset for WWE because he's just like who has a bad story about Titus O'Neil? Like he just seems like the most like outstanding guy.
Well, that one time that he grabbed Vince McMahon, boy.
If that's the worst thing you did, that you're pretty damn good in my book.
Yeah. Talking a little about, let's talk a little AEW Dynamite. Just some quick glossing over the Owen Hart tournament has been revealed, and they started that on this past week's episode of Dynamite. But one thing I want to talk about, the main event, Deonna Purrazzo. A week or two ago, she was the AAA Women's Champion. I saw her lose the AAA Women's Championship to Taya Valkyrie at Impact Rebellion. And then last night in I don't know if you saw it on our Twitter, make sure you follow us on Twitter at Heel to the Face. But a rematch of a match we saw here in September in Syracuse at Indie Wrestling Fed 2CW. Mercedes Martinez, Deonna Purrazzo for the Ring of Honor World Women's Championship on AEW television last night.
Good match.
Mercedes Martinez is now the new Ring of Honor World Champion. Again, as we still are sitting in this purgatory waiting for Ring of Honor to get its TV time. But Deonna Purrazzo had all these belts, and now not so much. 2 belts lighter than she was. And we also saw Another person I saw up close and personal, as close as I am if you're watching on YouTube, me to Brandon, as close as that, I saw a W. Morrissey, known as Cass XL, or WWE terms, Big Cass, make his AEW debut, but then he lost to Wardlow. He was MJF's essentially mystery opponent.
As soon as you said 7 foot tall, you're like, yeah, we know who this is. We know. I mean,
I guess my quick question to you is, if you brought in Big Cass in AEW, one, do you want him now stay in AEW? Do you want this just be a one-off? And if he is staying in AEW, do you think that's a good introduction to have him like lose right away?
No, it's not a good. If you're going to keep him in AEW, it's a no. To me, how I look at it is, yes, he took the L against Wardlow, because right now, obviously, AEW is putting a lot of stock into Wardlow at this point, obviously. So for me, Morrissey was a glorified squash match. So Morrissey can leave AEW for a while.
Go back to Impact.
Yeah, go back to Impact. Because here's the thing, his stock already crashed in AEW. So just go back to Impact and do your thing there.
I feel like that's what a lot. I mean, if you remember when he tried to make that return in WWE back at the Backlash 2018, they had him lose, I think, right away to Daniel Bryan when he made his return post Enzo. And
did you see the match though with him and Wardlow?
Yeah.
Did you see?
We want Enzo? No, we don't.
Yeah, you hear that, and like they had to blur it out, like bleep it out a little bit, because he was just like, I think he said like F Enzo or F something. Like it's like, that's interesting.
But you remember that little gimmick he had post Carmella, post Enzo? Like he was like kind of like a one-man mission coming back after WrestleMania 34. And then he lasted like a month.
I'll say this,
apparently
though,
he rubbed people the wrong way when he was in the back, and he was gone.
He looks great though.
He's always kind of looked pretty good.
No,
I think you're right. Post when he made that WWE return, though, he looked good.
I think this is the best he's ever looked. I think this is the best I've ever seen him in a wrestling ring. Like he just looks good. He doesn't look, and I'm not trying to shame anybody, but he didn't have the abs that he does now, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, he's been getting better since I think his WWE release, or at least his last turn in WWE.
He had to take care of some personal things, and he, what? Kudos to him. Take care of the personal stuff and getting your stuff together. So kudos to him.
So quick highlight on Monday Night Raw this past week was AJ and Finn Balor doing the too sweet thing. What do you make of this? Do you see more of that coming? You see this kind of a one-off kind of fun thing?
I mean, knowing WWE, it'll probably be a one-off thing. They probably got yelled at in the back for doing it.
WWE posted a lot about it.
Oh, did they? I haven't looked at any social media.
WWE has not shied away from any of this. That's what the thing is.
Because again, I haven't been really on social media since Monday, honestly. So if they're pushing that, then are they gonna do something with this, or are they just, or is this being set up as Finn's going to turn heel?
No, I just feel like they're going to do maybe like AJ and Finn maybe might team up and face Edge and Damian Priest now, because remember, Finn's got some unfinished business with Damian Priest going back before WrestleMania. So I think it's just a way to align them, essentially.
Okay.
I'll buy I don't necessarily think a big group is about to start, but it's just like a way to kind of align them.
Speaking of that, though, like on the other end of it, so is it just going to be Edge and Damian Priest, or are we going to introduce some other characters? Like, what's the deal here?
I mean, for now, this faction known as Judgment Day looks like it's just Edge and Damian Priest.
I got to tell you, though, in this kind of demonic, like Edge and Damian Priest has such a great voice for it. Like his like,
yeah,
like he could be, and this is no joke, like, I'm not a huge horror movie guy, anything like that, but he has that voice and the way he carries himself. He could do it.
Yeah, no, he's got very
deep voice. Like,
yeah,
I'm like, I can't even do it nearly as good. I can't even do it justice, because he plays that character so well. I actually enjoy him more than I do Edge in this character.
So we're moving on to WrestleMania Backlash this upcoming Sunday.
Do we have to?
Night. Yeah, it is the third Backlash pay-per-view from the Dunkin' Donuts Center in Providence.
Can WWE just scrap the damn thing? Like, here's the thing. WWE has so much on the line for this pay-per-view that they're pushing out Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns to a bigger pay-per-view.
What
does that tell you about this?
Well, I will actually say this much. I think they've downgraded this match a little bit, which I'm fine with. But if I was in the Providence area, sure, I'd be going, absolutely. But I was actually more wanting to like go to this, and I felt really strongly about this pay-per-view when it was a tag unification match in your main event. But even with Randy Orton, or not Randy Orton, but Drew McIntyre and Roman out of it. But now that it's essentially a Survivor Series, match that's going to be mostly like.
I'm sure it'll be a decent match.
No, it'll be a good match, but with nothing on the line, more or less like a grudge match, like what I said with Survivor Series. Sure. Big E and Roman is a good match. It's a good main event, but at the end of the day, whoever wins, whoever loses, it doesn't mean anything going forward.
Can I be honest? Like, who the hell wants to see Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss?
Yeah, I mean that
to me, like if you're doing pre-shows, that's the pre-show right there.
I mean, I don't know if this is going to have a pre-show because there's only 6 matches on the card so far, and frankly, I think it could just skip a pre-show. Just have these 6 matches and be good.
Let's be honest. It's 5.5 matches because Bobby Lashley and Omos ain't going long. Omos has a very limited repertoire at this point, so
yeah.
I think that match. I would be shocked if that match goes more than like 7 minutes. Maybe I think it'll be less than 5. To be honest with you.
With the Bloodline versus RK Bro and Drew McIntyre match now being a 6-man tag, do you see that being the main event? And do you see Bloodline losing? Because I see the Bloodline losing now. That this means nothing.
Yeah. I still think Charlotte and Ronda are the main event.
You think Charlotte? So that's what I'm saying. So Charlotte and Ronda are going to be your main event. I'm thinking Charlotte and Ronda or Cody and Seth. I think one of those could flip flop as your main event.
Here, I'll break it down. I'll go the top 3 matches in this order. I'll say Charlotte Ronda is the main event. I would say if you're going to make it a co-main event, I would do the 6-man, and then the match, the third to last match on, I think is Cody and Seth.
See. You don't like this pay-per-view, and I'm not saying it's the greatest for sure.
No, it's okay. I mean,
but I like it
throwaway.
because that's perfect. I don't.
It's a waste. Who's going to spend money on this match? Who's going to spend money on these matches?
Well, then because of Peacock, you don't really have to spend any money.
But like the attendance for this can't be that
attendance is
great.
good. Well, first off, it's at the Dunkin' Center, which is a small venue, and it's almost pretty sold out. Actually,
yeah. But how many seats? How many places? How many seats?
Like 7 to 9.
Okay, so it's right in the same range as what they're getting at other shows right now.
Yeah, no, this isn't like a 20,000 seat building here. But what I like about this is because we're coming off of WrestleMania, let's take a step back so we make sure that the big pay-per-views feel like big pay-per-views. I don't want this to have like a huge pay-per-view feel. I want this to feel like Backlash. I want this to not feel like SummerSlam. We have 8 stadium shows this year, and there's a lot of shows in which are going to feel like WrestleMania events.
Sure.
So, like, let's have one that fills in that, Backlash role. I don't want everything to have these huge, like, that's, I guess, my issue with before WrestleMania. We had Day 1, and we had Elimination Chamber, and they're like hyping these up as like huge matches, and it's like, whoa, like you're kind of taking away from WrestleMania a little bit.
Yeah.
If you're literally telling me this Day 1 match between Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, which was originally advertised, is like the biggest match ever, or like Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley when that happened at the Royal Rumble, I was like, whoa, like you're hyping this up as the first time ever. Maybe save that, you know what I mean? Which again, Royal Rumble's a big pay-per-view, but the point is, a pay-per-view like Backlash, yeah, let's have it main evented by Charlotte and Ronda. We don't need Drew and Roman Reigns yet because we're going to get Drew and Roman Reigns. There's literally, after this pay-per-view, there's Hell in a Cell, which is in Chicago, and then after that, it's stadium show. So we're gonna, or stadium show after that, because I think there's Saudi Arabia will be a stadium show. So you got Money in the Bank, SummerSlam, Clash at the Castle, and a Saudi Arabia show. So that'd be 4 stadium shows in a row. And Saudi Arabia, regardless, they're going to make that, like, they're going to give them the Goldbergs and the big names, and they're not going to hold back on that. And Clash at the Castle, in order to fill that huge arena and the way they've been hyping it, they're not going to hold back on that. SummerSlam, clearly they're not going to hold back on. Money in the Bank, they normally could hold back on because Money in the Bank matches themselves sell it, but because they're trying to fill Allegiant Stadium to an extent again, they're probably going to have to throw a pretty big one-on-one match in there. So yeah, there's going to be lots of opportunities for Brock Lesnar to come back and for Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre to square off. So I like that. It's also the reason why maybe I'm not driving to Providence. I mean, if it was a bigger card, I might feel more compelled. Like I said, if the tag team unification match was on the line, I might feel more compelled to go. But now I feel like, you know what? All right, we can kind of hold back on this one. We can watch this one on TV.
Yeah, I'll be watching on Peacock.
Yeah,
for sure.
For, and the thing is, the tickets are actually kind of expensive. Tickets right now starting at like $90 on the secondary market.
Yeah, I'm good. Hard pass. It's not worth $90.
Yeah, no, and I don't think it probably was worth $90. I think
to begin with.
Well, I think the title unification match kind of made it a little intrigue, with the tag team. I think that is a bigger match than what they actually, meaning Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre not on the card, but the RK Bro versus Usos for the unification of the tag team belts seems like a bigger deal than just this.
You don't need McIntyre and Reigns. You just don't.
Yeah, but so that seemed like a bigger deal. Now that it's a 6-man tag, it feels more like a house show match.
to me, it's a glorified TV show like a Raw or SmackDown.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It feels more like that.
It's not really. Yeah, it's not anything. To me, it's not. To me, this is not a pay-per-view card for my. It's to me, it's
nice.
It's a nice
what
Raw.
I wish more of the Saudi Arabia shows were like.
I mean, this is a nice Raw.
Yeah.
For me, it's a nice Raw.
It's what I wish more of the Saudi Arabia shows were like, in the sense of like they're worth watching, but they don't take away from the big pay-per-views here.
True.
And that's what this is. This is a filler. This is essentially what like the In Your House pay-per-views were intended to be. They were intended to be the 90-minute like specials between the big pay-per-views. Like King of the Ring, between WrestleMania and King of the Ring, this is like a nice little like Saturday Night Main Event. Between King of the Ring and SummerSlam, another Saturday Night Main Event.
Yep.
That's what these pay-per-views. So the third, and I think maybe that's why they're picking Providence, because Backlash has been in Providence twice prior. You had the Backlash from WrestleMania 15, Mick Foley and The Rock, or actually Stone Cold and The Rock, post WrestleMania 15 was in Providence in I think it was an I Quit match or a No Holds Barred match. Because they always take whatever the WrestleMania match is a lot of times and then give it a stipulation, like we're seeing with Ronda and Charlotte being the I Quit match.
Yep.
And last time around 2009, John Cena and Randy Orton for the world title at Backlash in Providence. So maybe that's why it's in Providence. Maybe because, to be honest with you, Providence isn't really anything grander than Syracuse.
No.
So I don't know why Providence is getting a pay-per-view event.
Well, it's a throwaway pay-per-view, let's be honest.
But still, I mean, it's still a pretty small city. If you look at just the cities in which they're going to. You know what I mean? Like,
true.
Yeah, it's a throwaway pay-per-view event, but they could still be going to Philadelphia, Chicago, or somewhere like that. They're going to Providence. They're not even going to Boston.
Providence, Rhode Island.
Which it just makes me wonder, like, why we can't have a Raw here in Syracuse.
Providence might be a nice place. Never been there.
I have been there because it's right next to Pawtucket. I've seen a Pawtucket game there before.
I mean, is it a nice place?
Yeah, it's a decent city. They got a decent amount going on, but it seems like if it was on the West Coast, it wouldn't be hosting a pay-per-view. I just think.
Okay.
I guess that's what I'm just trying to say.
Understood.
So we'll have all the WrestleMania Backlash next week. And I think I might even be attending the SmackDown post-Backlash next week in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. But for Brandon, myself, Jared, this has been another edition of the show, and we will talk to you next week.